Good evening, folks. This is Andy Pedraza with Special Effects Academy, and we're on the 8 p.m. start of the week session for January 12th of 2020. As usual, we will be going through our standard agenda. We're going to be looking at the prior week's results, our currency strength meter for the week, and the past 30 days, any fundamental announcements on the calendar, look at the major pairs on the daily charts, any setups in progress, and a few words in conclusion. Starting out with our ledgers today, we'll be looking at the long-term ledger. And bear with me, the screen is a little bit delayed here in updating. There we go. Okay, so not much change in the long-term ledger for the week. We've still got that same trade open with the pound Canadian. We're actually slightly better on a percentage basis because we do have positive swap on that trade, but not much. The trade at this point is at break even, and we're still waiting for it to fulfill to any significant degree. On the intermediate term ledger, and we'll wait a bit for the screen to update. Not much change percentage-wise. It was basically a flat week. Not much going on there. We do have a few new trades open. We took a couple of losses and one win throughout the week. Didn't really shift the needle to any significant degree, but we are looking at a few new trades that were open. The one significant thing, and we'll cover it in a further slide, was really the movement on the yen pairs, but we'll cover that very shortly. And last but not least, the short-term account. We did have a nice bit of an uptick there on some trades we opened. I think on Tuesday was when these trades were opened, basically. We caught two good movements, and a couple of trades. That one was almost exactly flat, the other one slightly negative. But two of the trades gave us enough of a win for almost 200 pips and 4 percentage points better than we were before. We have been modifying the rules we're using on the short term, just trying to improve the performance. It's our one account that was going slightly negative for the year. We're trying to bring it back, so we're still tweaking it, but it looks, just based on the first week's results, which again is not too significant, but we are moving in the right direction. So more to come on that as we fine-tune the new approach we're using on the short term. We'll be reviewing the results frequently and adjusting as necessary. Notes and opportunities for improvement. What I just mentioned, new policies term. Other than that, the market was pretty flat, except, as I hinted at before, the JPY. So the yen did suffer a significant weakening during the week. President Trump made a speech basically around the Middle East situation. He did calm the situation somewhat, indicated that the U.S. is definitely not looking to rock the boat significantly there, though the Iranians did counterattack one of our bases and ended up shooting down a commercial passenger plane by mistake. The U.S. has basically said that there will be no further retaliations as of now, which again soothes the spirits there in the Middle East. It made oil pop back down significantly, and the yen, which was serving as the safe haven as it usually does in times of concern, well, it pulled back. So we had some pullback on the yen throughout the week. That was the only significant movement in the currency markets for the week that just ended. And at least one of our losses on the intermediate was a yen trade. I'm pretty pretty confident that the yen will regain some of that in this week or weeks to come. So we still have some trades open there. Again, waiting to see what may come of that. But for now, we're cautiously still short on the yen pairs. So long on the yen, short on the yen pairs. Moving on to our strength meter for the past 7 and 30 days. Not much change on the monthly. We still see the metals, gold and silver, outperforming everything else. We've got some clear losers. The pound, the yen, the dollar were the three main losing pairs. The euro probably not far behind. And we have a couple of winners here with the Swiss and the CAD outperforming for the month, followed by the Aussie and the Kiwi. But again, the metals were the big movers for the past month, and volatility for the monthly remains around 9%. For the weekly, still the metals outperforming, and we did have, as I said, the deepest movement was the yen, followed by the Aussie and the Kiwi, and winners were the US dollar again, with tensions lessening on the Middle East. The dollar did a bit of shining there. The Swiss also performed pretty well. CAD, Euro, these were middle of the pack. But again, there wasn't any significant movement other than with the yen. As you can see, volatility remains on the weekly below 2%. And even that big move, the 2% move, was basically on the yen. The other pairs didn't move as much. The calendar for this week to come on the fundamental announcements is pretty much empty. There's nothing here that I would normally trade, so I'm not going to be trading any fundamental announcements this week. We can see that there's no interest rate decisions, no labor reports, nothing of what I normally trade. The only one, possibly on Thursday, the European Central Bank monetary policy meeting accounts release. That might be interesting, but the hour is inconvenient for me. 7:30 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time is pretty much my middle of the night, so I won't be trading that one unless I really decide to. I'll let you guys know well in advance. But as of right now, I don't see any fundamental announcements that I would be trading. With that, we move on to the charts, starting with oil. We can see that oil did a strong retrace from Wednesday through the end of the week. And again, this was as a result of President Trump smoothing down the situation there in the Middle East, which made oil drop in value. It's still pretty high, all things considered, and it's still moving towards the higher range of an upward sloping channel. So we'll see what happens with that as time goes by. But of course, we're not trading oil directly, at least not here in the trading room. But it is a good bellwether, especially for the Canadian. So I always try to keep track of oil. Moving on to the currencies, the euro dollar, as we mentioned before, the dollar did regain some strength. You can see that happening here on the euro dollar. Towards the latter half of the week, it went down to a previous level of support. Looks like the chart has it. There it is. There's the chart. So it did go down for previous level of support, broke that trend line yet again. I'm still looking for a trip towards the bottom, and we have an open trade at profit on the intermediate. No change to that. We'll let it continue to move along and see what it does. The pound, we're looking at the pound dollar now. As soon as the screen updates, it is traveling along the lower boundary of its upward sloping channel. I do think we're going to have a good opportunity to trade the pound down between now and the end of the month when Brexit is supposed to happen, or whenever something comes out of the news cycle in the UK and moves it in that direction. So I'm not trading it yet. I'm waiting for a good opportunity, but it looks like it's getting closer. We might be trading this one this week. Continuing with the USDJPY, again, the yen pairs were hit pretty strongly this week. So the USDJPY had been about to break a trend line on its way down. Instead, it bounced all the way back up to the previous level of support resistance. I did enter a couple of yen trades actually as a result of this, expecting it to go back down to the previous levels. So we did short them pretty much at the top. We're very near where they are right now, and we're still waiting for that movement down. USDCAD also suffered a little bit of a setback towards the end of the week, and you're going to see that with the Canadian. Really, the only pair that moved against the CAD was this one, the USD-CAD. Everything else either held steady for the CAD, or indeed the CAD gained some traction. But USD, the dollar moved into strength as a result of Trump's performance there with the Iran Middle East situation. It did make the CAD backtrack against the dollar. So this is the one pair we're going to see that CAD weakness is going to be the USD CAD. USD Swiss, also a bit of a retrace after breaking into or down to a new low. It popped back above resistance, back above the trend line, not to any significant degree. It is still very much close to the bottom. Some of these pairs, I'm waiting to see what develops, and if we are going to get a push into new territory. Too soon to tell for the time being. Next is Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar was pretty much of a rout, and we did take a nice chunk of profit on the short-term account when it did break that trend line. We got out on Thursday, so we completely sidestepped that retracement on Friday. Good thing we did. It would have pretty much wiped out a good chunk of our gains. And again, this is part of what we're doing on the short-term account right now, is being a little bit more conservative in how we're managing our open trades, when we're getting out at a loss, at profit. So we're trying to, we're not trying to make any home runs on the short-term account. That's not its purpose, though every now and then if they happen, God bless. But we're trying to adopt an approach that gives us a little bit more of small, steady gains every week, instead of trying to want to hit it out of the ballpark. So that worked out well this week. Regarding the Aussie dollar specifically, it did get stopped at support. We'll be looking at this very closely to see if it does head back down, breaking that support and gives us another entry into a possible Kumo cross, as well as a break of that outer trend line that we can see rising from the very bottom. Kiwi dollar, also a nice bit of a retrace from the top this week as the dollar regained strength. It did break a trend line. We're already in this trade and at profit on the intermediate term accounts, waiting to see if it does a test of the outer trend line, perhaps the Kumo cross, perhaps an even deeper trend. Aussie Canadian, and as we you can see, it made a nice move down throughout the week, bit of a retracement the latter half of the week, but still ended up significantly lower than it started the week. And more importantly, it ended up on the other side of the Ichimoku cloud. So this one is a nice bearish trigger there that we may take advantage of on either or of the accounts. We'll have to see. There's not a whole lot of room towards the bottom as these things go, but a pretty decent opportunity. Euro Swiss, probably our favorite pair right now. We are carrying an open trade that was opened back in November of last year. It's still going strong. We're carrying in excess of 150 pips of profit right now, with a good chunk of that protected. And again, it's made an all-time low in the visible portion of the daily chart. There is lower. We can see lower if we move out to a weekly chart, but on the daily, it's made the lowest low on the visible portion, and we're waiting to see if that can sustain itself and move even deeper. So we're in no rush to close that trade out. We have protected profit. We want to see if it does go on to give us even more gains. Euro pound, of course, vulnerable to the Brexit situation going on. So obviously we're watching it very cautiously. I'm still waiting for a break towards the top, which I'm pretty certain is going to come at some point in the near future. So we want to be ready for that. But on the break of that trend line and a movement across the Ichimoku cloud, which is already crossing sideways, we would be going in long on this pair and writing it as far as it wants to go. Euro is our next chart, the sideways chart, and again, for the collapse this week. So it was headed towards the go in, then it had started and crossed several levels of resistance along the way up. I see that the chart hasn't updated, but hopefully it will, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There we go. So that is what the EURJPY is doing right now. At this point, we have an open trade again, opened at what we thought was a decent point. This is our one big loser right now, in excess of 100 pips down on the intermediate. And again, these things do happen, and you cannot predict, especially on the fundamentals, when Trump is going to give a speech and when the Iranians are going to decide not to bomb anyone else. So these things will continue to happen, but we will be taking trades as cautiously as we can, where the odds are as much in our favor as possible. This one so far hasn't worked out. The trade was still open last time I checked, so it may turn around, but at this point I've pretty much written it off. Our next chart is going to be the Euro Canadian, also very near a low point of the daily chart. Trend line break, everything is looking good for a trip further down. It has, however, been stopped at a pretty strong, in retrospect, pretty strong level of support. It's broken through multiple times, pretty much every day of the week. But then, so this is another one we're closely looking at as the week begins to see if we get any opportunities to trade it further down. Pound JPY, a yen pair, so it did do a significant retrace this week, but all things being equal, it didn't break any levels of resistance, so it barely made it halfway up towards the next level of resistance. Still looking very good for a short. We did preemptively enter this one very near the top, so pretty much where it is right now. We ended the week at break even of that trade, but we're looking for the yen to get a little bit of a pick-me-up in the week or weeks to come, and more importantly, the pound to lose strength. Aussie JPY, again, and a JPY pair, so it did do that retrace throughout the week, breaking up towards the trend line, breaking a level of resistance. This is another one that I'm pretty certain is going to give us a good chance to trade it back down, but last week was definitely a rout for the yen. Euro New Zealand, and we did get triggered into a short late in the week. We had a pending order. It did get triggered. As you can see, it's bounced nicely off of the underside of that trend line. And of course, we're looking to trade it down at least to the prior low. And if we're lucky, to the low of the chart, and if we're even luckier, even below that. So I think that trade was carrying a small bit of profit as the week ended. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed here, but it is looking good for a continuation trade towards the bottom. So we'll continue trading it that way. We have made significant profit on the Euro New Zealand all the way down. So this is just adding a little bit of gravy on top of what we've already got. Pound Canadian, a pound pair. So it has been weakening in the past month, and it is sitting on a level of support and right above a trend line. We are waiting for that trend line break to put a lot more money into that trade. We have a open order on the long-term account, which is almost exactly at break even, or it was at the end of last week. So we're still waiting for it to continue down and perform, but it is looking good. And if we do see a nice break, I wouldn't mind entering this trade in some of the other accounts as well. Last but not least, our pound Swiss is pretty much the same. We do have an open trade on the intermediate, and it was pretty close to break even, or perhaps a bit as the week ended. we've had that trend line break for quite a while, more than 2 weeks, certainly, probably more than 3 weeks. So getting close to a month where it broke the trend line, and since then, it has been relatively flat. We're still waiting for a break towards the bottom, but it is looking more bearish than anything else. So we'll continue to track that and see how it performs for us. That does conclude our charts for today. Setups we see in progress. Not much change if you compare it to what we said last week. So the pound, it's still showing weakness, but has yet to fulfill. The dollar, probably the only change. It did start gaining strength this past week as the issues in the Middle East played out, and then nothing bad happened. And I also wanted to note that the Dow Industrial Average has gone to an all-time high. So it's never been higher than where it ended last week, or at least it made a new high sometime towards the end of the week. That is very significant. So we've got very high confidence in the U.S. stock market at levels that have never been seen before. And the only word of caution I throw out is that we normally see this right before there's a crash. So things never look so rosy and perfect as right before something like 2008 comes along and everything drops by 50%. So I would not be invested in the stock market right now. I am cautiously trading options, but most of what I'm trading is towards the downside. And maybe the crash doesn't happen this year. I don't care. It's a very low amount of money that I need to put on these options, and the payoff, if we do have a crash, is just astounding. So I might put a couple of $1,000 on a put option on the S&P on SPY. If it doesn't end up crashing, well, I lost a couple of $1,000 I put in. But if it does crash, I might make $150,000 off that one trade. So that's big league. So I don't mind risking $2,000 every year, waiting for the eventual payout. I guarantee that I'm not going to be 75 years, even if I live that long, waiting for the next crash. The last one happened in 2008. I think I was chasing that crash for maybe 3 or 4 years before it finally happened. So yeah, I put maybe $10,000 into a big hole in the ground and lost them overall. But when 2008 came along, I made 300 or 400,000 pretty much in a day. So is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. It's not something you should count on because you don't know when 2008 is going to happen until after the fact. That's why options trading is not my mainstay. My mainstay is the Forex market. The Forex market is my day-to-day. It covers all my expenses and then some. And the options market is my funny money. It's what's going to allow me to buy another building or whatever. So that happens only every 10 years or so, but when it does happen, it's amazing. And we're overdue for one. It's been more than 10 years since the last market crash. And we're going on 12 years, I'm sorry, right now. So it's coming. Might not come this year, but it definitely is coming. Canadian pairs, the CAD is maintaining strength. It didn't really improve much, but it didn't lose either, except against the dollar. So that's a good thing. We're seeing a stronger CAD. The yen pairs, as I kept mentioning, the yen slid back significantly after the Middle East tensions ease. So we're waiting for a move in the other direction for the yen to regain some of that. As usual, the market overcorrects. And the EU, the euro pairs, the euro is still in retreat. We can see the euro getting weaker against pretty much everybody else out there, with the possible exception of the pound. So that's that. We're going to be continuing to wait for breaks in the euro and the pound, and the others, USA, Canadian, Japanese. We're looking for strength. Of course, I'm ignoring the Aussie, the Kiwi, and the Swiss in this chart, not because they don't matter, but I try to focus on no more than 5 currencies when I do this analysis. So the Aussie, the Kiwi, and the Swiss, I will probably trade them. Doesn't mean I won't, but my analysis, I try to focus on the 5 I think have the most potential for the immediate future. And that's going to be it for me tonight. Final words, and this is a little bit different than what I normally do, It's a how can we help kind of message. I constantly ask myself this question. I'm doing well. 2019, as most of you know, was probably my best overall year across the board in everything I'm doing, the Forex, real estate, personal developments, everything. And I'm not trying to brag. It's just a simple statement of fact. But at the same time, I always ask myself how I can help more people. And this is an honest question. I'm not asking you how can I sell more of the stuff I sell. Obviously, I try to sell. I have a philosophy of never doing stuff for free. But there's a lot of people that need help out there. A lot of them are not going to get it, at least not from me, because they have this idea they can get rich quick, that they're going to find somebody in the Forex market that is going to turn their $500 into $500,000. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen with me at any rate. You might luck out and find somebody on a roll that may do that for a couple of months before they implode. But that's not what I'm trying to give to people. So the person or the people I'm looking for are those that understand that making money, especially if you don't have any to begin with, takes time. It might take 5 years. It might take 10 years. If you already have money, it's going to be a lot quicker. But if you don't have money, the first thing you need to do is make a little bit of a stake so you can grow that. So I'm trying to figure out how I can help these folks. And you guys have known me for a while. You know what my products are. I don't think everybody can be taught how to trade. That's a little bit of a pipe dream. In fact, I'm on record saying that a lot of people shouldn't be trading. So it's not necessarily going to be my courses, but I do have products like the Copy Trader or this trading room that are meant for people to pretty much do it on autopilot. But how can I get that out to a wider group? And more importantly, if somebody only has $200 to their name, and then I know people like that, how do I make that a good proposition to tell them, okay, you may not have a lot of money, but what you do have, park it over here, then leave it alone for 10 years, and maybe this is going to work out for you. And in fact, not maybe, more likely than not, it's going to work out quite well. But you need to have the patience for that. So I'm not asking for any answers right now. Just give that some thought. Email me any suggestions. I am honestly and sincerely interested in finding some sort of solution there. And again, it's not about me selling my products. I honestly couldn't give a damn. It's more about trying to help people that, as I've seen in the world today, are desperately needing help and are being pointed in the wrong direction. Nobody's going to make you rich by this time next week. Sorry to burst that bubble. But, and again, I probably can't help everyone, but if I can help 100 more people than I've already helped, then that's a good year for me. So give that some thought. Email me any advice you have, and I will be very eager to see if anybody has any good ideas. And that's it for me. Any comments or questions from anyone? Going once, going twice. Okay, then thank you very much. And we will be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. for our first trading session of the week. You guys have a great rest of a weekend. See you guys soon.